Hey guys, it's Brandon. Just wanted to go over a post game on a game I played on Chess Cube last night. Um, that was a solid sort of positional game in the beginning, and then became a tactical game at the end, and it featured a fun checkmate. So I thought I'd show it. I wasn't recording for live Blitz at the time, so I had white, and I was playing up a little bit in rating. I'm at like 1808 right now, and the guy I was playing was somewhere in the mid 1800s, like 1850 something. So I played c4, English opening. Been playing that a lot the last few days, just sort of trying it out, and I'm liking the pawn structures that I get out of it, and the solid positional nature of it. So he plays knight f6, inviting me to transpose into the various stuff with d4. The Nimzo Indian, Belgo Indian, the King's Indian, Queen's Indian, the Grunfeld, all these sorts of things, which would be a transposition if I were to play d4. But I don't really have any interest in doing that. I'm still trying out the English system, so I just played knight c3. And he sticks with the King's Indian type setup. g6. I played b3, and after bishop g7, bishop b2. So we have these bishops opposing each other here and here, and I'm hoping to trade them off at some point down the road and get play on his king side weaknesses on the dark squares. So d6, he's sticking with the King's Indian setup, preparing either e5 or c5, depending on which he feels like playing. Typical King's Indian stuff. g3, castles, bishop g2, and now we're 6 moves into the game before he plays on his 6th move, finally a pawn, before one of us finally has a pawn in the center. Notice until here, there's no pawns occupying the center, just controlling it with our pieces in hypermodern style. We sort of have two hypermodern openings going against each other. So, e5, and the problem, the major difference between this and any system, any d4 type openings, is that obviously I have no pawn on d4. So I'm not obligated to make any commitments in my pawn structure, which is sort of what I like about this English style setup. So e3, I'm preparing d4 in the future, or maybe f4, should I decide so, because now he's made a commitment in his pawn structure, and I can choose how I want to break it up. And also hoping that maybe I can get this knight in here, and keep this bishop's pressure on the b7 point. Like if he were to play something silly right now with this move like bishop f5, then he would drop this pawn and the exchange after that, swapping off a rook for a bishop. But my opponent was pretty high rated on Chess Cube and didn't fall for any of that. So after knight c6, I just decided to bring the knight out to its classical square on f3. So he plays bishop b7, castles, queen c8, preparing this queen and bishop battery here to exchange the light square bishops off. So he's got similar ideas that I do. Exchange the bishops, protecting your king, and go for each other on the light squares and the dark squares. So I hadn't noticed, really processed this battery that he set up here, because if I had, I might have played something like rook to e1, so that when bishop h3 comes in, I have the option of bishop to h1, holding on to my light square bishop without hanging this rook. So. But in any case, didn't notice that. And what ended up happening in the game was queen c7, getting my last piece out, watching the center again, watching e4, and connecting the rooks. Solid positional. I think I'm pretty sure that I've developed my queen onto c2 in just about every English game that I've played so far. Seems like a nice place. It's an easy development place. And she's also keeping an eye on this bishop here, so there's no tactics on an undefended piece. But the bishop exchange came in, rook to d1, preparing d4. I needed one more piece on d4 in order to pull it off. Actually I didn't, but I just thought, in case I had the option of, if pawn takes, then getting this knight here onto, this knight coming in here onto d4. So in any case, bishop takes g2, king takes g2, queen g4. This was a bit of an aggressive move here. He's putting pressure on this knight, putting his queen on an aggressive square around my king, where these light squares are weak. So this guy's going for the kill here. d4, just deciding what I'm doing in the center here. He plays e4 in response, which is interesting, forcing this knight to move away. And after this move, after I played knight to d2, I was a little bit concerned about plans of like queen h5 and then knight coming into g4, putting pressure on this very, very sensitive h2 point. But I thought that if he played something like queen h5, then I had h3 as a defense, stopping this knight from coming into g4. So I wasn't too concerned about it. And in the meantime, I have 3 pieces on this pawn, and he's got only 2 defenders. So he needs to do something about that, which he does. Rook a to e8, defending that. But now I go for the queenside space and to reopen this diagonal for my bishop. He has to do something with his knight. I think maybe best for him would have been knight here, harassing my queen, and then jumping into here. But then perhaps if I had played my queen back here, that would lose a pawn after knight takes pawn, knight takes knight, queen takes knight. That's probably a little bit hard for you guys to see with these arrows that I'm drawing, so why don't I just show it to you? Something like this, a variation here, maybe here, attacking this bishop. Oh, I suppose that wouldn't work out, because if I played here, he has knight here, here, and then I drop this knight. No, that would just be an issue. I drop this knight. So yeah, that looked like it would have been strong for him to get that maneuver in. But in any case, that's not what he played. What he played was knight to e5. And that was a blunder, because well, I don't know if it was a blunder really, but it loses a pawn. It blocks this rook's view of this pawn, which it was defending. So grab the pawn, some exchanges on e4 here, and he plays queen f3 check. And after king h1, I think when I checked with Houdini, it said that the game was a draw. Zero evaluation. But not that I'm claiming to be anywhere near as good as a chess engine, but I think maybe I prefer black's position a little bit, just because of the queen already in an aggressive spot on these light squares around my king, which are weak. So knight g4 comes in, very unsubtly putting pressure on this h2 point. And after the bishop exchanges and the queen check, just to get my queen eyeing these dark squares in his position. f6, I decided to give my pawn back that I had just won after h3. So now he can play rook takes knight, pawn takes knight, and then rook takes pawn, giving the pawn back. But I thought that this knight sitting here on g4 was just so aggressive that it would be worth it to give him the material back just to get that knight out of there. So give the knight back, and I played rook to d3. My plan here was e4, exposing an attack on the queen and allowing my rook access to this point, this f3 square, where it would have a nice view with the queen on f6. So he plays rook to e8, just putting some pressure, maybe planning to get this rook down here, connect the rooks, and cause some havoc. But he sort of loses sight after e4, queen here. Now here I actually have a chance to trap the queen. If I'd played rook here to e3, that traps the queen. He would force the queen to give itself up for a rook, and that would have been an easier way for me to win. But instead I played rook to e1, and he played queen takes a1, and even now I could have trapped the queen now with rook takes with rook to a1, and the queen again would have to give itself up for the rook. But I missed that one also, and I apologize for these random arrows that ChessBase is drawing in here. In any case, now continuing with my plan with the rook and the queen, now hitting this f6 point and causing some problems for his king probably. My opponent defends rather well, actually, rather cleverly, in my mind. He plays rook to e5, blocking the queen's view of that f6 pawn. I didn't even consider that move when I played rook to f3, so once he made that move, I decided just to connect the rooks again and get in this f5 and f4 advance to kick that rook off of that square. He plays queen a3, just transferring his queen back onto these dark squares, where I'm weak on the queen side. And f4, rook moves. It's now on the h-file, kind of menacingly coming down on my king a little bit. But after e5 here, he makes a series of mistakes that just absolutely give the game away. He plays queen c5 here, which is an interesting tactic. I mean, it's pinning my rook, so essentially as long as the queen's here and the king's on this diagonal, you know, this rook is immobile. But it allows e takes f6 check, and now he plays an even worse blunder. He plays king to h6, tucking his king away not into safety at all, because now he allows f7 without consequence, and now his king has no escape squares because he's blocked in by his rook, and these squares here are taken from him. So, I mean, after this check here, any one of these squares here would have been preferable for him to where he actually played. The best one probably being here, just to blockade the pawn. So he played king h6, f7, and now he's starting to get into some real trouble. This pawn is threatening the queen with checkmate, and he's got to do something about that. But maybe he was focused on his own plans. Maybe maybe he just didn't see the threat. He makes another mistake. But first, let's go back before I show you the end of this game. Let's just take a look at when I played e5. I think this was a good position for me, because even if he had gone into something like this, you know, these sort of exchanges, even if this rook exchange here, you know, I'm threatening to, I mean, even if, let's say he plays something like, I don't know, you know, queen check, you know, stuff like this. His rook is a little bit unprotected, and now I'm threatening discovered check and have some pressure on these pawns down here with my rook. So I think it's probably a better position for me in the long run. But anyway, he played, as we know, queen c5, allowing this, and then he played rook takes. So now we're back to where we were. He played rook takes g3 check, and this is completely and totally winning for me at this point. I mean, he has nothing left to play for. After king f2, his only move to sort of fight on would have been rook f5, just grabbing this pawn here and giving up this rook here, which is unprotected. So he would just be down a rook for a pawn at this point. But he didn't see his threat. He didn't see the threat, or he just wanted to do something else. So he's threatening. To move the rook away and take the queen, and it would also be check. But have a nice move, a nice way to finish the game. Simple and fun. I have f8 queen is mate. King can't get out because of the rook, and it can't get out to either of these two squares, so it's checkmate. I think I had a better end game even if I after rook g3 I had played something like, you know, queen takes e3, and if he had played something like, well, I guess he could have played rook f5 here, and then after queen takes, whoops, let's say he plays rook f, no, go back. Maybe he plays rook f5, queen takes, pawn takes. I think this is a better endgame for me after rook to e7, because these pawns are hanging over here, and I'm defending this pawn. I mean, he can round this pawn up by getting his king up here, and then with the rook, but then I have these weak pawns over here to play on in the endgame, and time maybe to get my king into an active position. But in any case, that's not what happened. So what happened was after rook takes e3, just f8 queen, and that was the end of the game. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and we'll see you next time.